Ce que l'on voulait évoquer avec vous cet après-midi, c'était une partie de la stratégie de Fujitsu dans le monde du cloud computing, qui est la façon de gérer le cloud hybride. C'est quelque chose dans lequel on croit énormément. D'abord, c'est factuel. Le cloud est hybride de fait. Et donc, comment on arrive à manager pour le compte de nos clients ou à fournir aux clients le moyen de manager des clouds hybrides. La plateforme d'intégration qu'on appelle FCIP, pour Fujitsu Cloud Integration Platform, est un produit qu'on a annoncé en novembre de l'année dernière. C'est un produit qui vit, c'est pas, contrairement peut-être à du matériel, comme on l'a vu tout à l'heure, c'est un produit qui n'est en fait jamais fini, puisqu'en fait il s'enrichit au fur et à mesure que d'autres services sont mis à la disponibilité, en mode SaaS, PaaS, DaaS, tout ce que vous pouvez imaginer. Mais c'est un produit que l'on a commencé à tester avec un nombre très limité de clients, dans un programme qu'on appelle Early Adoption Programme, un EAP. Et SOITEC était un des clients, des 3 ou 4 clients mondiaux avec lesquels on a testé.
But what we saw, I started Fujitsu's cloud business outside of Japan in about, our first platform was November 2009, and from then we've grown that business now to about 35 platforms, or will be 35 platforms around the world. For us, it's about $2.5 billion business, so it is making an impression on our business as our customers move to cloud. But what we saw over that especially the last 2 years, is the need to manage hybrid IT, or hybrid cloud scenarios. The management of multiple cloud platforms, or indeed the management of those services from on-premise and off-premise. And that moved us to look at investing in a platform called Fujitsu Cloud Integration Platform. We think cloud is a platform for the future. All ICT services over the next 5 to 10 years will be delivered from some form of shared platform with cloud-like characteristics, and the ability for rapid integration between those different types of services. The one thing we saw over the last couple of years is strong, mature enterprises had a good middleware layer or enterprise architecture within their organisation. Just to talk about the Fujitsu Cloud business, as I said, it's a $2.5 billion business today for us. We have cloud platforms in 25 centres, and you can see our geographic spread. One thing we took here, where some of our competitors in the cloud market they took for a very hyper-concentrated platform approach. You know, with a geographic footprint, for example, Asia, Americas, and Europe. What we found was our customers wanted workloads, in particular production workloads, in country. And so we've progressively rolled out platforms to put those workloads in country. And you can see here, 2014, we plan to put a platform here in France. And that was important because local law, regulation, compliance, and so forth sometimes demands that, but also organisations just look for the need to have workloads in country because it could be latency, it could be other performance characteristics, it could be just a field that they wanted in country. So we've continued to roll out this platform, and we normally do it for anchor customers. So First Citizens Bank in the Caribbean, they wanted a platform, so we put the platform down. And progressively this is rolled out. And I think by the end of 2014, we'll have 27 centres, but 35 physical platforms in countries around the world. As we move from our traditional facilities and where data is housed, as I said, organisations are starting to move out and procure more cloud services. We predict somewhere between 30 to 50 cloud services will be in an organisation over the next 3 to 5 years. Most organisations have somewhere from 3 to 5 cloud services today. So as those different cloud services, be they infrastructure, platform or SaaS, come into the organisation, how do you look to manage those? So this is what we think a theoretical view of the data centre of the future will be. The corporate knowledge is key. The one thing we've learned with customers over the last couple of years is you can recover everything. You can recover the hardware, the software, the application. The one thing you can't recover is the data. So the data is the most important thing, and it needs to be spread across multiple data centres, it needs to be protected and secured, and then everything else basically can be recreated. And the reason we looked at hybrid IT and looked at the cloud integration platform is how can we make a service that can manage all of this while protecting the information and making it portable, and I'll come on to that. And then as we see the world of Internet of Things and sensors feeding in and the mobility play, which will be the predominant access method for this new data center of the future, we still think information will be the core. And all these various types of what we call output and input models will circle that information. So some information will be accessed through a set of APIs, some information will be accessed through a web app, some information will be accessed through legacy environments. But at the end of the day, the core information will be what makes it a reality. And the data center will become more fluid, more agile, and be across more geographic locations. Fujitsu announced a capability in 2009, and then we re-talked about it in about 2013 called Fusion, or IT Fusion. And that's a fusion of multiple cloud platforms together. Because a singular cloud purchase has its own merits and business value. And we've seen a lot of organisations move to email from the cloud, CRM from the cloud, HR from the cloud, but they've been a very singular person. But the integration of those multiple cloud capabilities is where we think the power comes from. And the challenges by procuring single cloud was integration is non-existent. Clouds don't talk to clouds today. If you buy an Office 365 cloud, a Workday HR cloud, an ERP service from SAP, and a CRM service from Salesforce, out of the box they don't talk to each other today. So integration was a problem for customers. Then we talked at risk. And one of the biggest challenges with risk is who owns the information or who is responsible for the information once it moves out to a cloud provider. And that information is now, once it's solely sat inside the firewall, inside the physical data centers we own, now where does that information sit? So that risk of compliance and governance started to resonate up through the CIO and up to the board. What if that cloud business either went out of business, which doesn't happen that often, but you see cases of it? What if they change their commercial structure or their architecture or their database schema? How do you protect that information that is yours and critical to your business? So we saw that as a risk. Unified management, not something that's new to cloud, but the ability to have a unified dashboard and view across multiple cloud services and non-cloud services. So you can see the performance, the availability, the cost metrics of those. And that leads to the last one, cost control. As cloud became so easy to consume, CIOs in some cases lost control. Business units were able to procure that, and we lost the ability to aggregated buying or bulk procurement on that. So these were the challenges we saw, and we published this in a Fujitsu White Book of Managing Hybrid IT. Traditional procurement of IT at predominantly an infrastructure level, data center, applications, end user, network, and a single service delivery across it. When most organisations outsource, this is how an outsource model will happen. But as we started to see, more and more workloads were moving to the cloud, and this aggregation, this requirement to aggregate those together, integrate those together, and manage those together became ever stronger. And so this is what we consider now the new hybrid IT model, where it's multiple traditional capabilities covered by an ever-growing list of cloud capabilities in that service. So to address that, we looked at what we call Fujitsu Cloud Integration Platform. How do I draw more value out of my ICT through the aggregation, integration, and management of my multiple ICT services? So be that a cloud-based ICT service, be it an on-premise or a mix of both, the aggregation of bringing those together is what we see as the use case. And the ability to drive cost out of those. And I don't think I have that slide today, but I'll touch on it on the next slide. So what we wanted to do was address this challenge. So we developed Fujitsu Cloud Integration Platform, which is a way to aggregate, integrate, and manage these different kind of capabilities together. And we think it's the first step in addressing some of these challenges. So a business unit can continue to procure cloud, consume cloud in that agile method that they have been over the last couple of years, but it can be brought into a framework. For the board, it gives governance and management and assurance over that information. So even though the information might be out on a Fujitsu cloud, an Amazon cloud, a Microsoft cloud, a Google cloud, the list goes on, if you can manage that risk by bringing a copy of that information back to a central data center or a single provider, you've mitigated that risk of who owns the information. Because that information at the end of the day then can be replayed to a different provider should you need to. And that's how we address the issue for the board and governance. And finally, for the IT department, move them into a position of becoming an IT enabler. Stop providing the service and become an aggregator and be the go-to capability for these new types of services. And so for Fujitsu, we still want to sell to the IT department and the CIO and make them the enabler of this, so business units will want to procure for a unified interface for these different types of cloud services. A lot of people use the term cloud brokering. So what this isn't is cloud brokering. Cloud brokering is where you look at the price points and you look at the equivalent cloud services in the market and you pick the best workload to, best cloud platform to move your workload to. So that's cloud brokering. What we saw more value to enterprise and government was the ability to aggregate, integrate and manage. What we mean by aggregate is to bring all those different cloud services together and present them in a single unified portal. So within that portal you can provision those services, you can deprovision those services, you can assign those services to a specific user or user group, you can create billing and chargeback for that service, all in an aggregated platform, regardless of the buyer of that cloud service in the business. So that was aggregation. Integration was then equally important. The ability to be able to integrate different cloud services together. So you can have the CRM talking to the ERP, talking to the HR, talking to the email, talking to the supply chain. So out of the box integration, and we do that through a capability which some of you may have seen today from a company called Run My Process, which Fujitsu acquired here in France. So integration of those was quite important. And then finally, unified managing across those. The ability to be able to have a single dashboard view, single unified alert management platform for that. And I'll just go through the initial 6 capabilities of this platform. The first one was resource provisioning and reporting. So I can go onto the platform and I can provision a new Amazon infrastructure as a service, a new Fujitsu one, or I can provision a new user into Salesforce or into Google Apps or Gmail, depending on whatever the cloud services are. From a single dashboard, provision those services, get the reporting on those services, and the billing for those services back into a single dashboard. So that's the first capability. But for us, it's about an easier way to adopt cloud, because we put a framework in place, and as you start to consume different cloud services, you can plug those into a framework that provides that unified management, removes the risk, helps you can control cost, and starts to provide that agility back to the IT department that may have been lost through the fragmentation and purchase of cloud over the last couple of years. So I hope that makes sense.
SOITEC, très bon client potentiel pour le cloud en général, puisque des besoins variant d'un rapport 1 à 2 en fonction, enfin vous savez peut-être le domaine de ce domaine des microprocesseurs et des substrats, puisque c'est ce qu'ils fabriquent, et est très sensible à la signature ou non de contrats majeurs avec les Samsung, IBM et autres dans le monde. Donc en fait la demande et donc le besoin de ressources avec les ressources informatiques qui vont avec est extrêmement lié à la capacité de répondre ou non à ou de remporter ou non des marchés. Donc flexibilité demandée, capacité à passer d'une charge de ressources de 1 à 2 ou à 3, et en plus en fonction des locations, des endroits où sont basées les usines de fabrication de SOITEC, c'est-à-dire Singapour, San Diego, et puis je ne sais plus où en Europe, capacité à avoir très vite une amplitude de ressources, et donc capacité à répondre à ces besoins très vite, et évidemment à moindre coût, puisque c'est aussi une industrie, je ne vous apprendrai rien, où les marges sont extrêmement faibles dues à la concurrence asiatique. Ils se sont focalisés sur les fonctionnalités qui les intéressaient dans le produit. Ce produit offre de multiples possibilités. Il n'y a pas un client qui, à ce stade de la maturité du marché ou à la propre maturité du client, qui justifie l'utilisation d'un seul coup en mode Big Bang de l'ensemble. Donc de toute façon, c'est une approche que l'on retrouvera chez tous les clients. Le test et la mise en œuvre progressive de toute ou partie des fonctionnalités qu'offre ce produit. Encore une fois, l'adoption du cloud par une compagnie ne se fait pas d'un seul coup, demande une certaine maturité, demande une certaine réflexion. Ce que l'on propose, c'est d'accompagner les clients dans cette réflexion, puisque tout workload, on va dire, n'est pas éligible au cloud. Tout applicatif n'est pas prêt, toute organisation n'a pas le même niveau de maturité. Et ce qu'on propose, c'est d'accompagner les clients dans la définition d'un chemin vers le cloud qui soit optimisé, c'est-à-dire qui tienne compte des contraintes du client, des capacités de la plateforme et du choix du positionnement, du mode de cloud interne, externalisé, public, semi-privé, enfin, tout ce que vous pouvez imaginer en mode de type de cloud, y compris évidemment les modes SaaS qui se développent très très vite.